And now, it's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update.
Good morning, Charleston, to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com and 96.9 on FM HD2. Welcome to the Brian Beatty Show. 12 years I've been on this program, helping you guys understand the housing market, everything that goes into it, how we're doing in our little corner of the world, what's happening regionally, what's happening nationally. How does that impact us here in Low Country, Charleston, South Carolina? For those that are thinking about buying, selling, investing in real estate, or just want to stay up to date on housing-related news, economic and public or political news that impacts the housing sector, we've got a lot to talk about today. I'll tell you that I think a lot of real estate agents are hurting out there. And so if we're going to peel back the curtain on this industry like I do on this show, because it's my responsibility, I believe, as the host of this program, to help you be as informed as possible about the market and about the process of buying, selling, and investing in real estate. So if we're going to peel back the curtain on this industry, and we're going to talk about things like the impact of not just the current housing market and the state of the market, but also like the National Association of Realtors lawsuit settlement and the changes that have now gone into effect fully, and what that means for most everyday real estate agents. And we have to split that up between who's full-time, who this is their only source of or primary source of income, versus the folks that maybe have a full-time job and sell real estate on the side with what we would call a part-time agent. So if we're gonna expose all of that, I think it's fair to talk about what real estate agents are going through right now, because I think this is really helpful for you, the listener, the consumer, the potential buyer, the potential seller. You need to understand, I think, how real estate agents think and operate. And, you know, I've never been shy as a host of this show in telling you kind of what happens behind the scenes, because I think it's information that's not really been made publicly available. So I want to talk about the fact that real estate agents are hurting right now. I want to talk about, because of these new changes that have now gone into effect, how that's changing the process a little bit. Whether it's you're a buyer, you want to start the home buying process, you want to just go and look at a home, you're a seller, you're thinking of selling, do you offer a buyer agent commission, do you not? There's so many different things that go into this that we certainly can't cover it all in one show. But what's happening is that it's opening the door for more creativity in offers, which in my opinion is a great thing. That's one of the things I've loved about real estate in the almost 20 years that I've been selling it, is the ability to be creative. The more you know, and the more you know that's possible, you can educate the public, because they don't know. They don't know that there are all these different ways that you can approach this this topic, this situation. I mean, think about the typical buyer that needs to sell their home before they can buy another. You know that there are a ton of different solutions other than just waiting for the right home you want to buy to hit the market and then making them an offer contingent upon you listing, marketing, and selling your home. We had an entire show about that almost a few months ago, and we're on YouTube. You know, you can check out our YouTube videos. The Brian Beatty team is our YouTube channel. Of course, all of these radio shows are videoed and then put online, whether it's YouTube or Spotify, Google Play, iTunes. We turn it into a podcast. So if you ever miss a show, or if you just want to keep up with us on the go, we're in a bunch of different media platforms. And so we appreciate those of you that listen on. And I think really the last thing to dig in on here is the fact that we're just seeing some crazy policy ideas with everything that's going on politically right now. I mean, thank God we don't live in California. I mean, have y'all heard about what's going on there? Some more brilliancy out of Gavin Newsom, who's now talking about providing up to $150,000 for down payments to undocumented immigrants that are first-time home buyers. I mean, we'll go through that in just a little bit, but those are kind of the things that I want to talk about today. You know, the impact of Harris's economic policies. I mean, I'm going to try and be objective here, because that, I think, just before we get started with all of this, that I think is a main challenge in today's just world, the landscape that we live in, right, is you have the left brain and the right brain, right? You have the folks that are methodical, that are logic-based. And then, of course, you have folks that are emotions-based, right? They're emotionally charged. And we as a country right now are emotionally charged. Emotions are on high. And, for good reason. We're going through a pretty crazy experience right now with regard to which president is going to take control of our nation, right? And some of the ideas that are being proposed as to how to better our country are unlike things we have seen in decades, maybe even ever. And so there's a lot of just turmoil at the moment. And real estate in and of itself, which is interesting that this all ties together, is that real estate in and of itself is a very emotional process, right? Commercial real estate, not so much. You're dealing with business. With residential real estate, somebody's home that they grew up in and now need to sell, or raised a family in and now need to sell, or maybe it was a great marriage and now after 20 years they're dealing with divorce. I mean, that was the situation with the house that I bought, that my family and I live in. It was an ugly, nasty divorce. It was really sad and unfortunate, but it created a very emotional transaction for my wife and I, who were being very objective. It was just a very emotional transaction, and that happens the majority of the time. I don't have a statistic, obviously, but the vast majority of the time, people get emotionally wrapped up into the process of buying and selling a home, just moving in general, right? And so emotions are really high right now, and a lot of folks are deciding to just see how things play out until November, right? A lot of folks are straddling the fence at the moment with regard to the real estate market, and to an extent, I believe it's for good reason. If you're about to buy a house, but you have good reason to believe interest rates are about to come down and you don't have to move, well, that's probably a good reason to watch the market, because everything that we're watching, reading, hearing is pointing to some upcoming rate cuts. Now, the mortgage market may have already taken that into consideration, because it's not like if the Fed decides to cut rates, that means that the interest rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is automatically less, whatever that rate cut was, right? But I think a lot of folks they're just uncertain of the trajectory of our real estate market, of our economy, of the direction of our country. It's a lot. It's overwhelming for folks. And for those that don't need to move, they'd rather just save themselves the emotional, turmoil at the moment and just kick the can down the road a little bit. Let's see how this thing plays out. But I think as a result of that, as a result of the market that we're in, and the fact that the seasonally adjusted annual figure for homes that are going to be sold nationally is going to be worse than last year, and last year was not a good year for real estate. It has a lot of agents with their back up against the wall. They are hurting financially. Last year, the median income for a real estate agent was a little under $56,000, which was less than what it was in 2022. And the median number of transactions that an agent did last year was 10, which is $5,600 per transaction, right, in gross earnings. So I've never done this on this show before, but I want to just break this down for you for a quick second so that you guys understand this. Do a little realtor math here, all right? So let's say that let's say that I'm an agent that does the median number of transactions nationally and earning median income of $56,000 a year, okay? We do better than the median, I'll just tell you. But for the sake of math, 10 transactions for $56,000 total, right? So $5,600 a transaction. Well, 20% of that or so has to go to the brokerage, right? So we take $1,120 off the top. Then you've got transaction costs. If you're selling a house, it's really, really hard to, say that you're going above and beyond and taking professional photography and paying for marketing and paying for flyers and doing this, that, and the other, and not spend at least $1,500. We spend way more than that on our listings, but it's it's incredibly hard to get away with only spending $1,500 per transaction, right? So that comes off the top. So now our $5,600 commission check has been cut down to $3,000. Well, we also have to pay taxes on that because taxes aren't taken out. So for that tax bracket plus state, you're looking at another almost 30% coming off the top. So your $5,600 commission got turned into $2,146. And we haven't even gotten to the other business-related expenses you have. Gas, client events, marketing, lead services, just the list goes on. And so now we're looking at a little over $20,000 in net income. You can't survive off that, right? I mean, in our market in general, we have about 8,000 real estate agents in the Charleston metro area. 1,163 of them did at least 10 transactions last year. All right. 85% of the real estate agents did less than that is the point there. So I'm telling you this because if you're going to, peel back the curtain on the industry again, which I've done on this show for your benefit, I mean, we need to discuss the reality of what most agents can realistically bring to the table. I mean, you get to decide, is that enough? Do I want more? Do I want less? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Am I getting quality representation and value in return for the fee I'm agreeing to pay? Which is, whether it's paid for by the seller or not, money is being changed hands, right? From the buyer to the seller. And in most instances, yes, we're paid out of the seller's proceeds, but as a transaction cost on behalf of the seller, which the buyer ultimately agreed to pay as part of the price they've offered, right? In other words, real estate is inflated across the board to account for realtor commissions. And so I think there's a massive opportunity for quality agents right now to go above and beyond for their clients, to really show them the value associated with what they bring to the table. How do they do things differently? How are they proactive? How do they open themselves up to accountability to create the best client experience possible, catered to that client? I think for solo agents and part-time agents, times are going to be, they're going to continue to be really tough for them because the reality is most agents have not had to deal with a market like this before. And, I got licensed in 2006, so I've seen it go all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, and then wherever we are now. Whether that's, whether we already hit the top of the market and we're kind of coasting, flatlining, so to speak, or if we've got a little more gas in the tank. We'll see, I think, pretty soon when these interest rates hopefully come back down a little bit more. But I think, what's happening here is because agents have never had to deal with a market like this, they're very reactionary, they're emotional, and a lot of them have their backs against the wall financially. So this is when agents start cutting expenses, lead generation services, administrative support, business-related systems, software to improve efficiency, so on and so forth. And they're basically taking responsibilities back themselves personally because they don't want to write the check for it, right? They're going into hibernation, right? They're keeping their business on life support. They're burying their heads in their sand and just hoping that when they wake up maybe first or second quarter of next year that the market will be better, right? And what they do is they keep their business on life support, and they do that by diluting the cost of their services, right? Because the public's eyes have been open to the fact that there needs to be serious value associated with the commission being earned, regardless of whether you're buying a house or selling a house, right? It's what are you going to do for me? How does that differ from the other real estate agents? Do I want that, yes or no? And am I willing to pay for it? So they dilute their fee, and then the average commission paid out to a realtor over a time gets lowered because now the full-time agents need to be more competitive with their fees. And then because fees have come down, services, extra fee or extra value has to go away because agents can no longer afford it because they're not getting paid as much, and it's not like the cost of things are going to go down realistically. So then something interesting happens in that people realize, like, hey, I'm just not getting as much value from a realtor as I used to. And then certain teams, agents, companies stick to their their current policies and they say, hey, we're a value agent. We're not a discount agent. We can provide you with discount services, and here's what that looks like. But if you want to engage us fully and rely on the experience of somebody that's done 1,500 transactions to the tune of $1 billion locally, here's what those commission options look like. Here's what that plan could look like for you. We have different plans for different folks based on what they want. And so as agents that offer more services become more coveted, the public then realizes like, hey, we don't have a lot of use for the person that I work at my 9 to 5 with that's also a real estate agent. Because if I'm going to be paying for that service, regardless of whether the seller pays the commission or not, I'm still theoretically paying for it. It's got to be value. And so value is going to be at the forefront of discussions about working together. And that's a good thing. And then with the transparency associated with the NAR lawsuit and the associated rule and law changes, it makes it a lot smoother and more accountable relationship. And so I think these changes are a good thing. I think that we've still obviously got a lot to talk about, a lot to monitor over the course of the next few months as these changes really take shape. But as we continue along with the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about different types of offers and how people are negotiating right now. The market has changed a little bit. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk just a little bit about preparation, right? So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA, WTMA.com. And if you want to reach out to me, you've got questions, you want to hire a quality real estate agent to help you with your real estate needs, my number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065, or you can check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. We're just talking about how the market's changing, buyer behavior, seller behavior is changing as well. The reality is, there's so much discussion and the lens right now is on commission, right? Commission. And I frankly don't mind it. A lot of agents, and this is the reality of the situation, most agents want nothing to do with a commission-based conversation with a potential client of theirs, because agents are fearful that a buyer or a seller will want to pay less than what the agent wants to charge for their services. So what they like to do is trap you in a room for an hour and go through their dog and pony show and say, like, here's everything that we're going to do or could do, and so on and so forth. And, are you ready to sign the paperwork? And in their mind, hopefully they've done such a good job of demonstrating value that when it gets time to do the paperwork, you're going to agree to whatever that commission is, so long as it's not outlandish. I can't tell you very many times where I've had a seller just be like, yeah, whatever you charge is fine. Yeah, not a big deal. Of course it's a big deal. We have always on my team focused on value. What is it that we're going to do in return for being hired for this job of helping you buy a home or sell a home or invest in real estate or manage your property or work on my real estate team, right? I have the responsibility as well of being a business leader and owner and growing people's businesses and holding them accountable and providing them with opportunity and so on and so forth. And so I think that, these agents that are really struggling right now are trying to figure out what in the world to do because, and this article just came out very recently. The National Association of Realtors is connected with this one too. There's a new lawsuit claiming that the parent company, which is Move Incorporated, which owns realtor.com, which the National Association of Realtors sold the rights to. Realtor.com is not owned by the National Association of Realtors. It's owned by Move Incorporated. And they are, a lawsuit claims that Move Incorporated and their subsidiary companies have been selling fake leads to real estate agents for the past several years. The suit claims that nearly 50% of the real estate leads generated are simply a combination of contact information they've been able to collect about you combined with your online behavior. So like as an example, if you did a Google search or reacted to a keyword on social media like real estate or home or house or property or rent or mortgage, and they have your contact information, they then bundle that up and they sell it off as a lead. And that is why we as an industry have seen a unbelievable exponential increase in the number of quote unquote leads or inquiries that are being made every year on real estate, it's a real problem. It's happening across the board. It's not just this company, and I'm not saying that as though there are other lawsuits that are out there. There may be, but we on our own team have struggled with, somebody gets delivered to us as a lead. We call them and they're like, "What in the world are you talking about? We have no interest in real estate. Why are you calling?" And so these leads are just bundling up your contact information combined with your online behavior and saying, "Hey, real estate agent, this is a lead." And they're being so generic with the delivery of that information that when you call, you're under the assumption that this person's looking to buy a house or sell a house. They're like, "Dude, I just checked on the value of my house. I'm in no way, shape, or form interested in selling my house." And so this challenge has created a real problem in that real estate agents universally now have a conversion ratio of about 1%, meaning they need 100 leads if they want to get one sale. And really the industry averages somewhere between 0.4% and 1.2%. But people don't want to talk on the phone these days. It's been really hard to get people on the phone to have conversations about real estate, or to just say, "Hey, I'm not ready for another year." Great, I will call you then. All you had to do was tell me that. You could have avoided 16 other phone calls or whatever it is. But because people don't want to talk on the phone, they are still valuing the convenience side of real estate, which is that when your plans ultimately get to the point where you are ready to buy a house and you see one that you like and you call that agent and they offer to show it to you and they seem like they know what they're doing, that's probably going to be the agent that you work with, because that's statistically how 75% of people find their real estate agent when they buy a house. First one they talk to that has a heartbeat and some form of intelligence and can speak somewhat fluently about real estate. That's the math. And so because of all of these issues that are happening right now, and again, agents really struggling, you as a consumer, I think, have incredible opportunity right now. You get to leverage this to either have more strict expectations, have higher expectations of the agent that you hire, have a more open discussion about what working together looks like and what breaking up looks like. Hey, if you're not going to do the job, or if we hire you with this set of expectations and you don't fulfill those expectations, what can I do? What's the next step? If I want to let go of you and end our relationship, do I have the ability to, or am I stuck in this agreement with you? And that's why so many folks don't want to sign the agreement in the first place, because they don't want to feel stuck with an agent that ultimately doesn't know what they're doing or isn't the right fit for that buyer or seller, which is why our agreements, you can cancel them. If we're not the right fit, so be it. If you decide you don't want to sell your home anymore, I'm not going to force you to keep your home on the market. Our agreements can be canceled, but I think that it's really important that you as a consumer be prepared for this process, because the process has changed a little bit. And these new changes mean that, things like showings are less convenient for buyers and a lot more convenient for sellers. Less convenient for buyers because you have to have an agreement with an agent if you want that agent to show you a property before you step foot in the door. No more window shopping, no more tire kicking, no more, "Hey, can you just let me into a house? And if I like it, then we can talk about maybe we're working together." If the agent does that, that's on them, because it's a very finable offense, and it's an offense that can get your license removed. Straight up. So I'm not going to do it. It's going to make negotiability, I think, a lot more open in terms of commission. How much value are you receiving? How much value do you feel you need? And agents need to be more negotiable as well. Yes, of course, they'd love to earn as much commission as they possibly can in return for giving you, world-class treatment. Maybe the person buying or selling the home has been through this song and dance a dozen times, and they don't need all the bells and whistles. They know that they're going to price their home right. It's in great shape. They need a quality agent with a good marketing plan that knows what they're doing, that can be responsive and coach them on how to get the most money possible, right? Not a lot of frills, just straightforward. Help me get this house sold. Help me keep as much of my money as possible. And, let's have a little fun along the way. I think that, so negotiability, I think it opens it up to a lot more creativity, which we're going to talk about next. Is what do some of these new offers look like? How do you as a buyer or seller play in this new sandbox? I think prices, is another discussion. I don't know if they're necessarily going to go up or down as a result of these changes and the negotiability of commissions, which commissions, of course, have always been negotiable. But I think it makes it really hard to analyze fair market value because you, as the person trying to research what your home is worth online, don't know whether the folks in your community paid a buyer agent a commission or not. And you don't know if they paid that buyer any concessions at closing or not, which is why when we're pulling our list of comparable sales and we're looking at, like here are 5 properties that have sold, these 3 offered 3% to a buyer agent. This property, did nothing for a buyer agent. This property did nothing for a buyer agent and gave $30,000 in credits to the buyer. The point that matters there is that you need access to that information to accurately analyze fair market value. Because the reality is this: if a seller chooses not to compensate a buyer agent, which we're already hearing some sellers wanting to try that, and by all means, if that's what you want to do, that's your choice, and we have to honor that and explain what that might look like for you as you're on the market, not to coerce you into a decision, but to provide you with realistic insight into what that might look like for you and your home and in the process of selling it. And so, I think that analyzing fair market value is incredibly important. And a lot of agents struggle with pricing properties in the first place. It's a bit of an art, and it takes time to figure out what certain things in homes are worth, whether you have it or not. How much does that extra garage bay bring in the form of value? What is putting a fence on the property worth in the form of value? Screen porch, hardwood floors, kitchen upgrades. All of these things should have return on investment associated with it, which is why we're so analytical with our clients when we talk about pricing. We really help them understand here's the analytical way of viewing the value of your house, but we also have to understand that you have a certain price that you want for your house, and the buyer has a certain price they feel comfortable paying for your house. So we have to take all these 3 different opinions of value into consideration when trying to make a deal. And the absence of that information can mean that a seller shortchanges themselves or overprices the property. And if the buyer knows that the seller isn't offering a commission, what's to stop that buyer from saying, hey, if you're not paying a commission, then I'm automatically taking 3% or whatever the percentage is off the price because you're already saving that money. In other words, I'm not paying you 3% more just because you chose not to hire a real estate agent. I'm going to pay you what the property is worth, less that agent's fee. So in that case, you haven't really gained any ground financially as a seller if you go for sale by owner, which I think is a big problem right now. And I'll be perfectly honest in saying that we have a few for sale by owners right now that have recently converted over into hiring us to help them sell their home because it's just too challenging of a market. And so as things continue to change, of course, we'll provide you with updates and insight into that. Always like taking a moment to just thank you for listening to this program, for relying on the information within it to better help you understand the real estate market, the trends within it. It's been such a roller coaster over the course of the past few years. If you think even, like we had COVID, and then we had a market that just got so crazy exciting for so long, insanely low interest rates, people looking at their equity increase over time and just can't believe how much money they've made in their home. I mean, it's just been a whirlwind over the past several years. And then now, come late spring this year, it's like we hit a bit of a wall locally. And not that the train stopped dead in its tracks, but we're now looking at different market dynamics. We're experiencing new things as a market because markets, of course, are always ever changing, right? But articulating that to you is why I do this, is the fun in the job for me, is helping you understand what's going on right now and being the student of the market that I am, the one that's always researching it, always helping people understand it. I have to say that even though it feels slow because it is, and it feels hard because it's different, this, in my opinion, will lead to a better, I guess, experience with a real estate agent. These changes that have occurred with the lawsuit settlement, the market at some point has to balance, right? And let's be honest, we can't stay in a seller's market forever. We can't continue for prices to go up by 10% every year. The average sales price in Mount Pleasant is like $1.4 million right now. It's incredible. As this market continues to evolve, which I think we've got a lot of news that's going to come our way over the course of the next few weeks and months about the direction of the market based on policies that may or may not go into effect depending upon who's president and who can actually get stuff pushed through. But I think it's also encouraging that we're seeing some new creativity, and that I think has been missing from our industry for a little while because, again, it got so busy and so crazy and so hectic that for a lot of agents, like they're running around like chickens with their head cut off because they've got more business than they can handle. And as a result of that, customer service starts to slip. Accountability becomes less important to those agents because they can just replace their clients with new clients, right? It becomes this revolving door. And now that the market's slowing down, they're taking pause and they're saying, all right, well, wait a minute. I guess these changes are here to stay. I better figure out what's going on and how I can be of best use to my clients. And so what we're seeing now is a variety of different types of offers. And let me just say really quickly that, if you have things that you'd like to hear on this show, if you've got topics that you'd like for me to expand on, you can either call or text me, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. Go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, or check out these videos on YouTube and leave a comment there, and I'll reply to every single one of those. But if you've got information that you want to hear, or if you want to reach out to me and have that discussion in person, over the phone, by email, whatever's easiest for you, listingsincharleston.com or 843-800-0065. So some of the different offers that we're seeing right now, in no particular order, commission versus no commission, right? The seller is offering to pay a buyer agent a commission. The seller is not willing to offer a buyer agent a commission. Now, let's say a buyer is represented by a real estate agent. That buyer wants a buyer agent to be involved in the transaction. They need that experience. They need that, insight into the market, into the dynamics of the market. They're moving here from somewhere else. They don't know what they're getting into. They want a real estate agent. The seller has decided not to compensate a buyer agent. Just because a seller decides not to compensate a buyer agent doesn't mean we can still, that won't happen. We can negotiate for that. We can negotiate the seller to pay concessions, right? Closing costs, incentive-based marketing, and the fee that would be paid to the buyer agent can be taken from those concessions. And so even though the seller doesn't want to pay a commission, the commission is being taken from the incentives that would have been offered to the buyer. Now, obviously, the buyer has to agree to that. And that's where the conversation gets a little challenging, is that this buyer has maybe hired a buyer agent and they're saying, hey, I understand that your fee is 3%. I understand, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, that you're going to do everything you can to get that fee paid by the seller. But if we find a property and the seller's unwilling to pay the commission, even after negotiations, I'm responsible for that 3%. If that's great, if that's understood and that situation is fine, then, we get to have at it. But if the buyer is saying, hey, I understand that your fee is 3%, I need representation, but I don't have an extra $3,000 or 3% of my purchase price. I don't have an extra, $10, $20, $50,000, whatever it is, to pay your commission. So then that just means that you agree to only look at properties where the seller is willing to compensate a buyer agent because you need those services. It's a very delicate conversation, but it opens up a wide variety of creative solutions for negotiating deals. At the end of the day, really what we're talking about here is how do we get our clients the representation they need in return for, or I guess, how do we get them the I cannot talk right now. I'm a radio show host. You figure I could get some words out of my mouth. How do we get the folks the representation they need without having those folks feel like they're paying for it? That's basically what people want, right? They want the service, but they don't really want to pay for it. Or if they're going to pay for it, it's got to be worth it. You have to show them real value in comparison to other agents, which of course means that you, the buyer or the seller, need to interview agents so you have an understanding of what those different levels of service are. There's also the idea, again, of going back to what actually is that property worth. Were those sellers paying commissions to listing agents or buyer agents or not? That impacts the value, in my opinion, in terms of what a buyer should be willing to pay. And were there concessions to the sale? The problem is you as a consumer do not have access to that information. We do. That's why I think real estate agents offer some information that, again, it's not public knowledge. But it has a real impact on negotiability and ultimately the value of the property and what you're paying for or what you're getting if you're a seller. So still a lot to take into consideration with regard to the changes to this market and how you're going to approach it when making an offer. That's why the consultation process, I think, is so important, right? Really understand the differences in approach. Understand, if we're in this scenario and the seller is or is not paying a commission, if there are or are not incentives being offered, how do we address that? How do we account for that? How do we potentially use that to our advantage? Or can we go out into the open market and find somebody that's willing to sell their house and it's not already on the market, right? It's an off-market property. That's something we've been doing for years, and that's one of the reasons why folks work with us so much is we have the true ability to source deals for you that are not publicly listed for sale. We have all the tools and the information and the systems and the people to go out and find what you're looking for, even if it's not on the market. That's something you get when you run a big team and big business and have a big budget and can do those kinds of things. Just being honest. If you want to reach out to me, 843-800-0065 is our phone number. Call or text. That goes to me personally, by the way. 843-800-0065. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. I want to get to a few of these policies that are being proposed by the Harris campaign and the impact that I think they're going to have on housing. And we did a segment on this a few weeks ago. Obviously, some more things have come out since then, whether it's, expanding the child tax credit, which, I don't have any issue with that. But we're talking about providing down payment support for qualified first-time home buyers, which, yes, that is helpful for a lot of folks that want to get into housing, ownership, right? For most people, their home is the largest, biggest, best asset they have. The challenge is this is a demand-side solution, not a supply-side solution. Her supply-side solution is to build 3 million homes over the course of the next several years. That's not going to be possible if regulations on building do not get completely overhauled or at least massively overhauled. There's a reason why it takes a few weeks to get a development started in Texas and a few years to get a development started in California, who, by the way, California, as I mentioned a little earlier in the program, unveiled a new policy that's, it's up to Newsom to sign it. Because it cleared the margin in the state house by 25-14, and in the Senate by 45-15, in the Assembly, and so now Gavin Newsom has a policy on his desk that would extend up to $150,000 in down payment assistance to buyers that are first-time home buyers that are undocumented immigrants. If you're just, a normal tax-paying citizen that maybe served in the military or as a nurse or just struggling, sorry, you're not part of this potential solution to housing. And so it's all over the place, all over the news. But, there's plenty of Californians that are not undocumented immigrants that need those services. So if I was an American living in California that wanted to buy a home, I'd be pretty upset over the idea that this policy was even suggested, and the fact that this immigration issue is being tossed around like a political football. right? But then we've also got things like the price fixing, right, for food. We've got the elimination of capital gains, potentially, increase in capital gains, lowering on the threshold for estate tax, death tax. I mean, we're moving in a pretty scary direction. We're going to continue to cover it. But for now, real estate market is kind of just plateauing, holding firm. We'll see how that changes over the course of the next few months. If you want some direct information on your area, feel free to reach out to me, 843-800-0065 or listingsincharleston.com. And you guys enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.